Well, good morning. Welcome, everyone, to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Emerald Coast. I'm Shar Farley, a member of this fellowship and your service leader this morning. The UU Fellowship of the Emerald Coast is a religious community united by UU principles and committed to service, spiritual growth, and caring fellowship. If you're visiting us this morning, and if you'll find some more information about us on the back of your order of service, on our website and on our Facebook. Please fill out a card, visitor card, at the blue table at the front of the door so that we can keep you informed of upcoming events. Unitarians come from a liberal theological background, stressing not creed, but religious integrity, freedom to be true to our own search for meaning. Universalists stress expansive love that excludes no one. Together, we find value in most sacred texts and all of humankind's life affirming religious aspirations. Please check your order of service for announcements, including our upcoming services. Next Sunday, Easter Sunday, Reverend Ruth will be joining us for a special Easter service in which we celebrate the triumph of life over death. And also we have a very special announcement from Miriam, our president of our fellowship. Good news, I think.
Sure. This for just a second. Go ahead and start giving yourselves a round of applause right now, because pledge campaign is done. Keep that applause coming because you're going to be excited with these numbers. What was our goal? About $108,000 for this year? And 412. We are at 118,439. And we've got nearly 100% participation. Ladies and gentlemen, this is fabulous news. So go ahead and give yourself a round of applause. I am marking this up, and we are closing the campaign. Thank you. All right. All right. I need some help. I need some hearing. We're going to be able to accomplish our mission. We're going to be able to dream big this year. We're going to be able to participate more with ourselves and with the community out there. So thank y'all so much. We're done.
You need help with that, Mary?
No, I do not.
She's our woman. Oh, very good news. Just thank you, everybody. And we're looking forward to another great church year. After the service today, please join us for some light refreshments in the back. I made the coffee this morning, so if there's any complaints, don't come to me. We had to give Rachel a morning off. About 11:15 then, the children, we don't seem to have too many children this morning. There's one. They'll go to their Sunday school room, and that will give the adults an opportunity to select one of three small groups, discussion groups today. You're bound to find something that touches your fancy. Those are listed on your order of service, so we hope to see everybody there. And now, Erica will play our prelude and take us into the service.
There are times that walk from you like some passing afternoon. Summer warmed the open window of her honeymoon, and she chose a yard to burn, but the ground remembers her. Wooden spoons her children stir, her bougainvillea blooms. There are things that drift away like our endless numbered days. Autumn blew the quilt right off the perfect bed she made, and she's chosen to believe in the hymns her mother sings. Sunday pulls its children from their piles of fallen leaves. There are sailing ships that pass all our bodies in the grass. Springtime calls her children till she lets them go at last, and she's chosen where to be, though she's lost her wedding ring. Somewhere near her misplaced jar of bougainvillea seeds, there are things we can't recall, blind as night that finds us all. Winter tucks her children in her fragile china dolls, but my hands remember hers, rolling around the shaded ferns. In her arms are secrets still like songs I'd never learned. There are names across the sea, only now I do believe. Sometimes with the windows closed she'll sit and think of me, but she'll mend his tattered clothes, and they'll kiss as if they know. A baby sleeps in all our bones, so scared to be alone.
Lisa Farley will light our chalice this morning. Whenever we are serving a noble and unpopular cause with selfless devotion, holding to the ideals of truth and justice, whenever we are seeking to uplift the fallen, to comfort the brokenhearted, to strengthen and encourage the weak and hopeless, whenever we are working bravely and persistently in the face of abuse and criticism to establish more equitable relations in the world, whenever we are sacrificing our lives on behalf of what we believe to be the service of love for all humanity, that is Palm Sunday. Now, please join us all in singing our opening hymn, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again. It's number 61 in your gray hymnal. Miss Lisa has a story for all ages. So the children want to come up and sit up in front.
Try it this way. All right. So we have some kids today. Great. So I'm going to read you today a book called Outside In, which is kind of a weird title. But before I read it to you, I have a couple questions. So who here, and everybody can answer, has ever been in a forest? Maybe hiking. You ever been in a forest? Or like the trees and everything? Okay. What about, have you ever been by like the river or the bay or the beach? Yeah, a lot of us. Okay. So, one last question. Have you ever been too busy? Maybe you have too many activities, or you have to go to work, or you have chores or responsibilities. Maybe you haven't been able to have the chance to get outside when you want to. And sometimes we don't even realize we want to because we're so busy that we forget. I know that happens to me a lot. It happens to my husband a lot too. So this book is going to give you another way to look at nature when we're stuck inside. And I'm going to give you a challenge today. Okay? And it's something you have to keep in your minds. But I want you, when I read, to think about how nature's inside your house. Because it is. There's a lot of different ways. And I want you to keep it secret. And on the way home, whoever you came with, whether it be your parents or grandparents or friends, I want you to challenge them and see if you came up with more ideas than they did. Okay? So, keep them there. Try to, remember them. And then a lot of times kids win in these contests. So, I'm rooting for you guys. Okay? All right. So, we're going to read Outside In. Once, we were a part of outside, and outside was a part of us. There was nothing between us. Now, sometimes even when we're outside, we're inside. I bet you guys know about this, right? We forget even outside is there. So outside reminds us with flashes at the window and slow magic tricks. It sends the sunset and the shadows inside to play. Outside sings to us with chirps and rustles and taps on the roof. It beckons with smells, sun-baked, fresh, and mysterious. Outside feeds us. Sun, rain, and seeds become warm bread and berries. Outside cuddles us in clothes, once puffs of cotton. It holds us in wooden chairs that were once trees. We feel outside in the warm weight of our cats and the rough fur of our dogs. Sometimes I smell it on my dog too. Outside shows us that there is a time to rest and a time to start fresh. Outside steals inside. Maybe a spider seeking shelter, a box elder bug in the bath, or a tiny snail on kale. Even rivers come inside. Cool water rushing, eager to return to the sea. Do you see what they mean by the rivers come inside? Yeah? This one kind of tricked me for a minute. She's at her sink. See? I'm here, outside says. I miss you. Outside waits. And we answer. our story. So you have a challenge, right? Think about all the ways nature's inside your house. And then challenge number 2 is maybe this week find a time that maybe you wouldn't get to go outside to go outside. Okay? So you guys are going to have a great day today.
It's a good story. It's time now take a moment now for a silent prayer or meditation, and then I will close that part of our service with a reading of a short poem that I think will be a good introduction to the theme of our sermon this morning, which you'll later hear. I am not religious, says my neighbor, as he hoes the rows between his beans and his corn. Oh, yes, you are, I say to myself. To plant a seed is an act of faith. To collect compost is a response of gratitude to the Creator. To water, to fertilize, and mulch the ground is an expression of religious responsibility. To kneel down and pull weeds is a prayer. To harvest is to participate in the fullness and grace of the Spirit. To protect and replenish creation is to love God. I'm not religious, says my neighbor. Yes, you are, I say. Our cash offerings this month will be shared equally with Opportunity Place in Fort Walton Beach. Opportunity Place provides temporary emergency shelter to families and single women who are homeless in Okaloosa and Walton counties. With compassion and dedication, Opportunity Place works hard to assist these families to find permanent housing and the resources they need to be self-sufficient. If you're paying your pledge today with a check, please write pledge on the memo line. And now, will the greeters come forth to accept the offering?
The offertory today is a song that I wrote back in college, and it does use Christian language, theme, imagery. This is kind of a step on my road to the more spiritual but not religious side. I thought it fit, maybe if you tilt your head to the side a little bit. We talk about Christmas and the night a babe was born. We talk about Mary, how she listened to the Lord. We talk about angels, how they heralded the birth. We talk about travelers who knew a God had come to earth. We talk about Easter, how he died upon the cross. We talk about disciples and the way they grieved their loss. We talk about the promise of a life beyond our own. We talk about how happy we are to know we're not alone. But in between a birth and death, there's a lot of life to know. Unbounded love and servant's hands. Sometimes it seems we've let them go. He talked about people, the ones who'd fallen through the cracks. He talked about their value, past human judgment of their acts. The world that he dreamed of was one where selflessness would reign, where we'd work for one another, lonely, impoverished, or in pain. Yes, in between a birth and death, He was a baby lying there. He wasn't about Easter, though I think he knew his work could lead him there. But now we come to worship and fight our hateful Bible wars of sexuality and gender. We treat our charities like chores, and we congratulate each other over our virtuous moral lives. We'll just beyond the church doors, our kindred shiver, starve, and die. In between a birth and death, there's a lot of life to know. Unbounded love and servants' hands. I wish we wouldn't let them go. I wish we hadn't let them go.
Thank you so much, Erica, for sharing that. And now, Reverend Ruth is not with us in person today, but she is going to be on the screen. And the title of her sermon is something we hear a lot about being used. I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious.
Of the Society for Creative Anachronism. Does anybody know the SCA? We got a few. This is an international organization that's been around since the 1960s for enthusiasts who like to learn about and recreate the European Middle Ages. You may be familiar with Renaissance fairs, which have a lot of crossover with the SCA. People make and wear period costumes, create period arts and crafts, imitate period warfare with non-lethal versions of weapons. They gather for feasting and singing and dancing. Everyone is milord or milady, and some have even earned elaborate titles. A few years out of seminary, I was struggling to find a peer group of 20-something friends who weren't church members or other ministers. Seriously, most of my Methodist colleagues were old married men. Nice enough, but not people I wanted to hang out with on my days off. The SCA offered a wonderful anonymity to my interactions. Literally no one asked about or cared what I did for a living in the regular or mundane world. Now, Bill considered it his personal responsibility to greet every young woman who walked in the door, and he was most solicitous that first evening. As the weeks went by, we found ourselves enjoying each other's company, and one night, after the requisite post-meeting beer and snack at a nearby establishment, Bill walked me to my car, and he noticed for the first time the sticker on my windshield, which read, "Clergy." He stopped. He stared. He looked at me uncomfortably. "Is this your dad's car?" "No," I replied nervously. "It's mine. I am a Methodist minister." Well, you've never seen a fella backpedal so fast. I thought he was going to trip on the sidewalk as he rushed off, calling his farewell over his shoulder and leaving me standing with keys in hand. Poor Bill. It was quite a shock for a Baptist guy who had abandoned the church years earlier. It took several weeks and a little jealousy watching me flirt with the other knights before he finally gathered the courage to ask me out again. And as he got to know me better, he learned that not all Christians are alike. Once word got around our local SCA group, the others were curious and amazed. How could I really be a minister? Was it okay to swear around me? Did the church mind if I drank beer? A sarcastic and recalcitrant Jewish fellow named Joe asked once, Is the Methodist Church the one that teaches that you have to have a covered dish to get into heaven? I laughed and said, well, a coconut cake or a couple of gallons of tea will probably get you in just as well. I so enjoyed my time in the SCA because I could take my minister's hat off and relax and be a normal young person for a few hours. I also learned a lot about how my peers viewed religion, faith, spirituality, and the church. Many had grown up with at least some church experience but had become disheartened or disinterested. A few had never attended a religious community at all. This interesting group of intelligent, creative young people taught me some things about the secular world I had largely left behind when I entered the ministry. I met a number of people who used the same phrase to describe themselves: spiritual, but not religious. Now, this phrase was really developed in the 60s and has been around for a while. For many, it seems to mean that a person sees themselves as an individual spiritual being in need of spiritual nurture, but not interested in the institutionalized experience of spirituality in a group where rules and laws dictate belief and behavior. Another way to think of it is that spiritual means the internal individual and religious means the external community. Some of you may have thought of yourselves as spiritual but not religious at some point. Over the decades, our culture has developed a suspicious and sarcastic attitude toward religious institutions. Many who left such institutions or were pushed out for some reason held on to their sense of self as spiritual beings and perhaps their core beliefs in a deity or a higher power. Hence, they saw themselves as spiritual. But they had let go of or run away from the religious institutions and were therefore no longer religious. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Yeah? Yeah. See some nods. So how does it feel when I say that being part of this fellowship makes you religious? Oh no, did I offend anyone? Is anyone surprised? Well, okay, all right. Well, this is a fellowship, a group of people who claim a common religious identity, Unitarian Universalist. Now, we don't all espouse a particular creed, and we do engage in a variety of spiritual practices in both private and communal spaces. We are, many of us, suspicious of institutions and authority, and we insist on the free faith we find here to do as we please on our spiritual journeys. No matter what you practice in your private and personal spirituality, and that may be as mundane as drinking a cup of coffee every morning, or as spiritually focused as an hour of deep meditation followed by another hour of hatha yoga, and then a delicious vegan breakfast of sawdust in hemp milk covered with organic blueberries. The minute you walk into the fellowship building and join others in spiritual practice, you have become spiritual and religious. Who knew? A Pew Research Center study that came out a year ago revealed the following about people in the United States. When asked about their religion, 3 out of 10 answered none, N-O-N-E. The nuns make up 29% of U.S. adults, up from 16% a decade earlier. So that's about a third of the adults in this country. Reverend Lillian Daniel, author of Tired of Apologizing for a Church I Don't Belong To, divides these nuns, N-O-N-E-S, into the no ways, the no longers, the never haves, and the not yets. No ways are those who have deliberately chosen to leave the church for a personal reason, usually because they felt hurt by someone or an event. No longers have drifted away, not for any particular reason, but they've lost interest, gotten out of the routine. They don't really miss it. These two groups are the ones we most often concern ourselves with, and the ones we will make the most effort to lure back into the fellowship. We know them. We remember when they were part of the congregation. We feel safest trying to get back people with whom we already have a history. The never-haves have not grown up in the church and may be the children of no ways and no longers. They have learned to be suspicious of religious institutions and stay away on purpose. The not-yets have no experience with church but are open and curious enough to visit sometimes. They often find themselves treated like no ways and no longers, when in fact they have no defensiveness about church. They simply have no idea what's going on. There are at least two reasons we should pay attention to this research about the growing population of the NONES, nuns, people who claim no religious affiliation. They are often the ones who call themselves spiritual but not religious. One, how do we create a safe and respectful space for everyone's faith experience? Unitarian Universalism is the one religious institution where an NONE of any kind is likely to stick their head in the door. What will the spiritual but not religious person find when they take a peek at us? Of course, I was not a nun, NONE, when I decided to check out Unitarian Universalism. I was quite spiritual and religious as a Methodist minister on leave and left to my own devices on Sunday mornings, and I missed church community. I also felt like I couldn't really be myself in Methodist churches because they would put that minister hat back on me and expect me to speak and act in a certain way I was no longer comfortable with. So I went somewhere I knew about, the Birmingham Unitarian Universalist Church, where I thought I could be anonymous. We happened to visit on a Sunday morning during Stewardship Month and heard the testimony from an elderly church matriarch about the UU free faith and respect for the individual spiritual journey. I'd never heard anything like that before. That sounded very appealing to me. What I later discovered and have come to understand is common, especially in UU churches in the South, is that almost every life-affirming religious tradition is welcome, except Christian. Former Christians, no ways and no longers, are very welcome, and those who made it in are often some of the stoutest church leaders. But what about people who are still believers in the Christian message and trying to find a place where to live those beliefs with integrity while expanding their faith? Well, the welcome can be far cooler for us. We might be allowed in, but we'd better leave Jesus outside, preferably locked in the car at the farthest end of the parking lot. We UU faith communities present ourselves as a haven for those injured by previous church experience. We're welcoming to those who long for a church community without judgment, without creeds. And yet, we do sometimes judge, and we can be closed and inhospitable. If some folk in a fellowship who identify as humanist or Buddhist or neo-pagans do not want to hear any mention of God or Jesus, then haven't they made the space unsafe? Aren't they shutting out some people from the faith community? So we need to take a long, hard look at ourselves. We need to make space for everyone, for all the NONES, the I'm not sures, and the I need a safe space to figure it out. 2, how do the spiritual but not religious fit into our fellowship's future? Human beings are pack animals. We seek packs of similar persons where we will feel that we fit in and we will feel welcomed into the community. The pack is always suspicious of newcomers, and it will take a while for someone new to earn trust and fit in. In a faith community, we wrestle with this pack instinct. We want to be welcoming, but we really prefer people who feel like ourselves. I knew a woman years ago who, if she walked in and found a visitor sitting where she always sat, would stand in the aisle and stare indignantly at them. When they inevitably asked if something was wrong, she informed them that they were sitting in her seat and they must move immediately. She was obviously not the chair of the hospitality committee. When a never have or not yet finds their way to our door, we may assume they are a no way or a no longer and treat them like they have a church history, which gives them a kind of map for navigating church. In fact, these visitors may never have attended a religious service outside a wedding or a funeral. They have no idea what is going on from the moment they enter and try to figure out where to sit. Why do we sing songs together out of a hymn book? Don't we know that people don't sing in public anymore except when they are drunk at karaoke bars? We even pay people to sing the national anthem and do not sing it ourselves. And one day, I'm going to preach a sermon about that. Why do we share personal information during joys and concerns? Is this a kind of self-help recovery group? What is the point of a 15 to 20-minute lecture in a world where tweets and texts take seconds and TV shows can be streamed, paused, and changed if they turn out to be uninteresting? And all those strange words and letters we throw around, UUF, UUA, RE, prelude, sanctuary. The exception, of course, is cookies and coffee after the service. Now that's something everybody understands. But is free coffee enough to turn these visitors into committed church members? Very few people walk in the door looking for a place to engage in committee work. Ooh, join the worship committee, teach the children, clean the kitchen, trim the shrubbery. Yahoo, count me in. Well, probably not. That's a very rare visitor indeed. Visitors come in to see what we can offer them. They are exploring, even shopping. If they don't like what they see and hear, they won't be back. These nuns, N-O-N-E-S, may find their way here, but no one can come in and be invisible here. How do we welcome and offer without being either not warm enough on the one hand or smothering them with our neediness on the other? I heard of a church where a nice woman with no church background, an N-O-N-E, visited one Sunday. During coffee time, when she mentioned she was a trained accountant, the chairman of the finance committee was immediately called over. He asked her right there if she would volunteer to be their treasurer. Interestingly, she accepted and took on the complex task. A year later, she got caught up in a conflict and resigned, leaving immediately. She had no real understanding of what a faith community was, and she was handed a vitally important role long before she had grown into being a committed fellowship member. Did you arrive here thinking of yourself as spiritual but not religious? Now that you have become religious, perhaps in spite of your best intentions, how's that personal journey going in this community of spiritual freedom? What can you offer the next N-O-N-E who walks through that door? Is our community a safe, respectful space for all life-affirming religious traditions? How can we make it more so? I think a lot of spiritual but not religious fall into our favorite unpublished demographic. Unitarian, Universalist, but didn't know it. It's time to consider carefully how to reach this part of the Panhandle community and welcome them home. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be. Of the
Let's sing verses 1 through 3.
Mindful of our higher aspirations, bound by common faith and purpose, and yet beginning with ourselves as we are, let us take one more step together in our unending quest for dignity, justice, and love. Amen.